John, I'm going to move on to inviting the panellists up for our next big session.
Excellent.
So I don't know. Yes, are we doing the Stop Shutting Streets video?
Shall we?
That? We've got a video, but we would like our panellists to make their way forward to the front of the. I think Steve Gerlich and John Garforth are coming back again. And we've got Pam Koskin and Joe Poley going to speak a bit later. But we'll just do this video in case you haven't seen it. This is something that's a major, major problem, and we're going to go through this problem because it's time the nonsense ended. The popcorn will be round in a minute. I'd just like to thank Shoot Business and the members that took part in that video because they come from Scotland, Manchester, London, and all around the country. This is still, and we've got one of our film stars here, Pamela Koskin. I'd like to welcome her up. Pamela. 80-year-old Pamela, look. This is becoming a nightmare. We are becoming whipping boys for idiocy and stupid policy. We're part of the solution, we're not part of the problem. We're being asked to get environmentally friendly vehicles. So what? So we can't drive them anywhere, so we can't get here, we can't get there. It's causing massive problems, and the panel are going to articulate a few of the difficulties that are happening in real time. Kids can't get dropped off at school with special needs. I was on Stoke Radio not that long ago where this person said, well, I had to wait an hour to get the cab, and when I could eventually get the cab, it couldn't come anywhere near me at 2 in the morning to pick me up because of stupid closures in the streets. It's absolutely stupid policy. It's not environmentally friendly because the operators are having to drive their vehicles all over the place. It's absolutely arrogant to do things without consultation and bring them in on the basis of a pandemic. And we've got to get very loud and very angry about this because it's just been going on too long. I'll just add a couple more points on this slide while I'm in Mr. Angry mode. Why are we congestion charged? I went to see Ken Livingstone in 2000 and he took the congestion charge off of us because we stopped the need for car ownership. One PHV can do 20 journeys and save 20 cars. It's absolute lunacy, congestion charge. Congestion charging our industry and not congestion charging our competitors is an act of sabotage. We've then got the national air quality requirements. We need you to get this vehicle. We need you to get that vehicle. Otherwise, we're going to fine you. Well, we're being fined to death, so we can't afford to buy the vehicles we need. It's just absolutely mad. We want to get the vehicles. We want to move into a better environment. Before I move into the next point on the slide, how the hell are we supposed to charge the vehicles if we do get the vehicles? How do we get the vehicles that we need when there's no battery space? How do we use these vehicles when the ranges aren't big enough? We need solutions to all these problems. And I just want the panel to sort of talk through the difficulties we're having because it's time that this industry got very angry and started really lobbying. And today is the first day of it. The pandemic finishes today, I think, doesn't it? Isn't furlough stopping today? So from now on, we need to absolutely raise the ante and stop this nonsense. I'm up in Glasgow next week, and our Glasgow members are saying they've ring-fenced Glasgow for COP26. We've got contracts. We can't take people to the hotel. We can't move them. We can't do this. This nonsense has got to stop. And doing things without consultation, although there are emergency measures, I don't believe all of those measures where they put in ridiculous cycle lanes and blockages and what have you, that actually caused traffic congestion and caused all manner of problems without consultation, then spent hundreds of thousands of pounds to take them all out. I mean, I spoke to Southampton Council last week, and they virtually, or a member in Southampton, they virtually removed all the measures they had down there. They put them in at great expense, and guess who has to pay for them? You and I, through our taxes. So there's a lot of issues here, and I want to hear from the floor today how this has affected you, but if I could pass over to the team members here to just tell you how, as trade union representatives, as a licensing authority, how these things are affecting and what they've done to mitigate them. But we've got to actually get on the case here, and we've got to do something about this nonsense. Ladies first, Pam.
Is this on now?
I'm sterilised.
Good afternoon.
Here to the middle.
The list is endless, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. I could probably be here for a week and write a book. But mainly we transport very vulnerable children, SEND children. They've not only got lots of disabilities, they've got behavioural problems, and we're expected, even with our special needs vehicles, our disabled vehicles, in some instances, where it's expected to offload the passenger assistant and everything else in another street, because the street's closed off. We're not getting any help hardly at all. I must say, one council, we are exempt, but the council seem to think that we're going to provide the same driver every day. And as we all know, passenger assistants, but drivers might not be working for one reason or another. We try and give them regular routes. But the most important thing is the councils are not helping us. We've got one council that will accept if our drivers do get the PCNs. But the other councils don't want to know. And then if we are allowed to, by the schools, we're allowed one registration number, one car. And then all of a sudden, we go from a three-seater car to a six-seater car or a disabled car. And they won't accept anymore. The list is endless on that respect. This week in Hackney have closed a road. They've got the A10 going through it, or alongside it. If Hackney had control over the A10, which is TfL route, we wouldn't be in business at all now, because we go to our people, our residents at either side of the A10. Every road is blocked, one way or the other. Going away from the children, one of my drivers, he picked up a lady, she was going to the doctor's. 9:30 in the morning, or 9 o'clock. And she said to him, "How are you going to take me to the doctor's next week when they close this road off?" My driver said, "Good question." He literally, and these are loads of elderly people, not only elderly people, children, parents, all sorts of people. We cannot now get anywhere in Hackney unless you go down the A10, or that's about it, without, being in terrific traffic jams. So, as I say, I could go on and on and on about it, but thank you very much.
Give her a round of applause. That's a real operator that deals with real people and real drivers. It's a nightmare. Steve, please.
Well, I don't just deal with private hire and drivers, but I also deal with other trade unions and groups. I sit on a thing called the Transport Industries Network with TUC. I can tell you emergency crews, blue light crews having the problems. Also, work for food delivery couriers and couriers. So I deal with Hermes and Yodel amongst others. The issues throughout the trades are legion, because not only are you finding drivers facing verbal abuse for not being able to get passengers anywhere near their desired destination or from their desired pickup point, but you've got individuals who are earning some of the lowest amounts for living in the country, whether they be driver, private hire driver or courier, doing 45p a parcel, who are potentially leaving themselves open to fines. Now, I understand that we want the cleanest atmosphere for all of ourselves to live in. I understand that we all want quality of life and we don't want anyone to die unnecessarily from lung disease. The private hire trade is one of the cleanest, greenest trades there are. By proof today, you can see that we're surrounded by a plethora of electric vehicles, and that is the way the trade is going. It was already one of the cleanest trades. So to use that as a hammer against the trade alone is inappropriate as far as I'm concerned, and that comes back to some of the comments made by Heathrow earlier, where they're saying they're trying to clean up the atmosphere and everything else. Well, I'm sorry, it's BS as far as I'm concerned. I'd use a stronger word, but there's me present and Jeff as well. I don't want to upset the older crowd, but ultimately, in all seriousness, this transcends everyone. And there's a group of people who have moved into urban locations and then feel that they should be treated as if they're living out in the country. especially in London, it is living and breathing, and it is a commercial area, and it's a commercial city and town. And to presume that you can block streets because you would like to have a tea party out there, or that you can block parking spaces and put some nice bushes and then make it even more difficult for people to park, or remove streets and leave even more congestion, creating even more emissions, is bonkers. And unless we really get together and start to challenge some of these behaviours, it will continue on ad infinitum, where more and more and more closures go on. I could also probably speak for everyone on this, so I'll shut up now.
I'll stop you. Thank you, Steve. Joe.
Yeah, we try to get this matter sorted out for our drivers because we deal with a number of the different boroughs. So we wrote to the 32 boroughs across London for clarity on what was expected of our drivers with these timed road closures. And of the 32, only 5 of them actually wrote back to us. Richmond and Hounslow basically said that PHV would be exempt if they were picking people up in one of these areas, but we would have to apply each time we had an incident, case by case, day by day, hour by hour, every single time. Harrow wrote back and said that PHV is not exempt, you'll be fined. And then, who else do we have? Croydon, we're still awaiting more clarity. They weren't quite sure themselves. And
Kingston, Richmond?
No answer. But there's 27 of them who didn't write back. And then, I can't remember what Bexley said now actually, but there is, we're meant to administer, we did a lot of stuff about how vulnerable our customers can be and how needy, how much in demand we are to provide a door-to-door service. And you can't tell someone who doesn't have easy mobility, or they don't have great English, or they don't have the wherewithal to actually to meet us on a street corner. It's a nonsense really, and it's just been forgotten in all of this really, that actually what really matters is people in their homes should be safe leaving it, not just left to peril to be standing out here and there just hoping that some passerby driver is going to pick them up. There's just no organisation, no thought, and no consideration into it. It's just an arbitrary decision that seems to be made. I mean, it's just how we're meant to work this is just ridiculous. So we need to do something.
Thanks, Joe. Right, we'd now like John Garforth, who's involved in Oldham as a licensing authority, a local authority, and Transport for Greater Manchester, and we have been working very closely with them on what they're doing and making the points very clearly on the need for our industry to live and breathe and to be able to move. I'll say it again, we're not part of the problem, we're part of the solution. So it'll be good to hear from John, who's also Vice Chair of the Institute of Licensing, who we are now members of and working very closely with. So over to John.
Thanks, Steve. I think I'm going to go a slightly different take on things. Obviously, I don't work with the trade in a sense of employing or driving myself, but I do hear feedback. And obviously, as the Institute, we've been working with government on the implementation of the Business and Planning Act 2020, which brought in the examples that you saw on the screen of the road closures. It was very rushed legislation brought in during the pandemic to deal with a specific issue. It's not for me to comment on behalf of the government as to how they went about that. I know that the intention was to assist the entertainment and hospitality industries in reopening. I know the counter-argument of that, which you've heard already, is the impact it's had on drop-offs and pickups. Some towns have seen very few road closures there. You saw Manchester city centre on some of those pictures where there's been whole streets and lengths of significant highway closed off. And it's a difficult one for local authorities because the government have brought this new regime in of what they call pavement licences. It isn't really just about pavement, it's about the highway in general as it stretches out of the pavement onto the road. But all that's classed as public highway in most cases. And it gives the applicants of businesses the opportunity to apply to the council to close off part of that area for their purposes, i.e. generally tables and chairs on the highway for eating and drinking for the hospitality sector. And I think local authorities have had some fairly balanced and difficult decisions and choices to make as to make the right choice that tries to sit with the situation they're dealing with. So you've got some significant highways closed. You've equally got some. We've got an area called the Northern Quarter in Manchester, which is predominantly cobbled back streets, but does have a lot of cut-throughs previously for cars, and that's really taken off with a lot of new bars and restaurants. And you get so far down the road, and the road becomes blocked by the barriers you've seen there. I think certainly in my area, we've tried not to block off too much length so that taxis and private hires can still get relatively close. But I know that isn't always the case up and down the country where there's been some significant walks for people to get either side. So what I suppose I'm saying is it's a balanced decision. The government have, you won't be pleased to hear, just extended that emergency legislation for another 12 months till September next year. That doesn't mean they have to apply again. It's not an automatic extension of those pavement licences. They do come with a fairly short turnaround. They're only advertised on the premises. So if you've got locations which are causing you problems, most of these licences got granted around this time last year, and they will be displaying notices on those businesses to say another application's gone in, but they have only got a 7 calendar day turnaround for consultations, and then we as the councils have got 3 more days to decide on those applications. Very, very swift procedure. So if you have got particular issues in your areas, I'd encourage you to lodge objections if you've got them to the licensing or highway authorities who are dealing with those applications, and let them know the impact they're having, and they can take account of that in making their decisions. But there's not one easy solution because it's trying to fix several things whilst impacting on others.
Thank you, John.
I feel your pain. Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you. We certainly need some solutions. Just before taking some questions and moving towards finalising, there's yet another nonsense being proposed that's going to affect everybody, whether you're in Inverness or Land's End, if you come into London. There's a proposal out at the moment that you could be paying £3.50 to £5.50 virtually to cross the M25 as a new proposed charge from the Mayor of London. That's in addition to, on the 25th of October, non-compliant ULEZ vehicles paying £5.50, and if you really want to go into central London, you're going to get another slaughtering with a £15 congestion charge. This has got to stop. We're being asked to modernise the fleet. We're being asked to buy electric vehicles that are extremely expensive. And we're in a situation where we're being battered, kicked and fined to death and treated as a cash cow by all and sundry. So we are going to get very politically angry about this. As I say, the pandemic stops today because furlough stops today and we're all back on the 1st of October, you know, scrabbling around for whatever you can get out of life. This has got to stop. We're part of the solution, we're not part of the problem, and that's the message we're going to be getting going forward. So over to you guys for questions, please, and thanks to the panel for the brilliant anecdotes they've just given us.
Thanks, Alan. Quick wash and brush up. Short back and sides.
Yeah, I guess my view is this. Listening to what people have said, but the one salient point that has stuck with me throughout what everybody has said there is 27 out of 32 councils didn't even bother to acknowledge an inquiry. And it's all right saying lodge appeals and do this. This is the contempt with which our trade is treated. Successively now, for the last 5 years, there's been an absolute purge. You talk about pavement licences. I'm sure they have to pay for those. That's another cash cow. You've come after this trade time and time again. English language, emissions, congestion charge. And it's all right saying that we're being listened to. 27 out of 32 London boroughs didn't even have the courtesy to acknowledge a letter. Now, until we get together as an industry, Steve up there does a great job with the black cabs, and Steve does a great job with the private hire. But unless we can unify, like the black cabs, we will continually be treated this way, and we can have this meeting every year here at the Marriott and discuss the issues and go back to our own little cubby holes and carry on doing what we're doing before. Unless we as an industry change the way we address the oppression we're facing, that's before we even talk about the operators' fees that they threw in on top. Unless we do that, we can forget it, because we'll be saying the same thing we have been saying year in, year out, and we all grumble around the concourse and then we all go back. 27 out of 32 local councils didn't even bother to send a reply. That is the contempt with which we're treated. Now, we can sit back and carry on or not, but it's up to everybody in this room to start changing the way they think and start working together. That's really what I see from it.
I just want to say something to this very quickly. For those of you in London will know that Tottenham Court Road's had closures throughout it. They made arrangements for taxi to be able to drop off and ignored every single response we put in for private hire. Total contempt. Do they not think that people take private hire? Do they not think that people just across the way go to Great Ormond Street in private hire vehicles to get to and from the hospital? It is a travesty that there is a total misunderstanding of what private hire is. And the point is that Steve's made and others have made, we need to really be cohesive in this action.
Thanks very much. And just to say, this whole thing is being videoed, and we will be sending it to every councillor, politician, MP, assembly member, Uncle Tom Cobley and all. What comes from the floor today is very, very important. You saw our excellent Stop Shutting Streets video. That's resonated with some people. It's helped in some licensing authorities, but we have to get on the case of these councils. So next question, please.
There's a lady in the middle there, Alan. Thank you very much.
It's not, is this on? Hello? It's not necessarily, well, I suppose it is a question.
Sorry, is that mic not working?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
that's better.
Sorry, it wasn't close enough. So we've got the problem ongoing with Sarah Everard. We've got all these road closures, and obviously everyone's going on about people getting to doctors and hospitals. They can't even get to their own road. What about the safety of youngsters, women, elderly, anyone really? What they're doing is saying, yes, you can hail down a black cab, you can do whatever you want, but all these pre-booked hired cabs, which we are booking for our own safety, we are not able to get to. So how are we going to deal with that? I don't understand. If we're trying to make things safer, but yet we're still putting loads of obstacles in the way, I don't really know.
Yes, I mean, when I did the interview on Radio Stoke, it was about not being able to get a cab, not being able to get a private hire vehicle, not being able to get out from the nightclub. The girl on the interview actually said that people were starting to sleep in doorways because they couldn't get home. And the girl actually said that she was in the entertainment industry and she couldn't, it took an hour and then she couldn't get anybody to come near her. Isn't it absolutely ridiculous that the morons that are putting in these road closures do not consider the public safety element? It's done on the basis of social distancing. Well, I've got to tell you, when we did the investigation in Manchester, we spoke to the members in Manchester, what they were saying was it had actually had the absolute opposite effect, because the lack of street pavement and what have you was so confined that people were actually closer together. We need to stop this nonsense, and we need to get loud about it. That actually is the last point to be made, because we're actually at time. There's one more. Last point, and that will be it. Thank you. No, we have schedules to keep to. People have got to get away. I'm sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm a newbie to the industry. I'm Anthony Medica. And you mentioned Croydon Council. So I live in Crystal Palace, and that particular part of the area, you have Bromley Council and Croydon. So Croydon put in LTNs. No one's, we're talking about lower traffic neighbourhood schemes. And these people living in utopia. So I've been on a number of protests in Croydon. That poor taxi driver named Prince, who thankfully he had £14,000 worth of PCN notices overturned, luckily. But I was part of those protests. And no one's calling out, the politicians, Bojo. No one's calling out Sadiq Khan, who has at least said he wants to be known as the most greenest mayor ever, right? No one's calling out Grant Shapps. They're all in it together, right? They're installing, yes, they've removed the planters, right? But they're installing AMPR cameras, right? All this without consultation. And as a ordinary Joe blogs, it's affecting everyone, all to promote active travel. Yeah, active travel. I love walking. We live in London. It's got a fantastic public transport system, but I do not appreciate being dictated to as to when and where I drive my car. That's it. Yeah. And just before I go, I'm part of a group called the Open Our Roads group on Facebook. It's got 2,500 plus members on there, and I believe there's members of Croydon Council on there as well. So something to think about. Open Our Roads group. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
right,
you.
John, would you like to summarise? First of all, I'd like to personally thank all the panel and everybody that's made a great effort to get here in extremely difficult circumstances. The fact that you've turned up in numbers today says a great deal about you all. Thank you very much, John.
It's confession time. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I have sinned greatly, and you have helped me see the light. And what I mean by that is I'm one of those civil servants who put in the rules. I'm one of those people, I was one of those people, who brought electric vehicle charging to the UK. I've done more in the last 10 years to promote electric vehicles than almost anybody else in the UK. And I stand here today sad. I feel very sad because part of the unintended consequences of what I have done and what I have tried to achieve by moving people to active travel has helped to undermine an industry for which I now have great respect. If I tell you that 2 years ago I didn't know who Steve Wright was, I had no idea. I didn't know Alan, I didn't know Louise, I didn't know the fabulous team that work here. Until today, I didn't know Steve, I didn't know John, I didn't know Joe, and I didn't know Pamela. But their names are ingrained in my head because if we don't all pull in the same direction towards the goal of you achieving a living wage for doing a brilliant job, then somehow my time on this planet has been wasted. So what I'd like to do is to make a commitment to you, to work with Steve, if you'll have me, to help to start to move towards collaboration. I've done a lot of things in my life. Some of them I'm ashamed of. Some of them I'm still proud of. Perhaps one of my proudest moments can be helping this brilliant man to get to the right people. He's got a network like you wouldn't believe. He's got a black book that I would be envious of. But I do think that together we can solve these issues. There is nothing that I've seen today that is insurmountable. This is about people, what people want, what people need, and what people do. And what I see is what you do is critical to the way this country works. And I'll give you a commitment. I hope to be here in a year's time when we do come to the Marriott again and we do have the same conversations, but that we've taken a step forward. Because I truly believe that the people in this room, if you all come together and if you all pull in the same direction, can support Steve and these brilliant people who've given their lives to making sure that your livelihoods deliver life for those who are vulnerable. Because imagine having Asperger's, having Alzheimer's, having terminal illness, and imagine just for a second not being able to get where you need to be because somebody closed the road without thinking. These people are not evil. These people are not bad. They are not trying to screw you. They just didn't think. Our job, I think, is to help them to realise the error of their ways and to do better. Because I've seen some fabulous people in this room. Let's not waste this feeling. I'm also angry. I'm angry because you're not valued. You're not valued out on the streets, and you're not valued by local authorities. You're not valued by government. As individuals, you are incredible. Together, you could be a real powerhouse. But we have to marshal our arguments, we have to know who the enemy is, and we have to go after them. None of that is my business yet, but I have such admiration for the work you do, Steve. I can't tell you. And anything you need from me and my network, it's all yours. Thank you. Obviously, it goes without saying that we need to thank our sponsors because they've been outstanding. So Cab 9, Cab Treasure and Cordic, I hope you've done some good business today. I hope that there have been people at your stands, and I hope that it's been worth it. I think it has. I want to thank all of you because I'm sure there have been compromises that you've had to make to be here. The guy who's having to get up in the middle of the night to go and do journeys and stay overnight away from his family. You've all had to make those sacrifices. So thank you for being here. You've probably lost fares today so that you could be here. It matters and it's recognised, so thank you for that. To the guest speakers who've been here, TfL, Heathrow, Pamela, obviously, utterly fabulous. Thank you all very, very much indeed. The hotel staff, we've already given a shout out, but they were brilliant. Lunch was fabulous, endless amounts of coffee. What more could anybody want? So thank you to them. To Alan, to Louise, to the LPHCA team, just outstanding organisation. They keep saying to me, oh, ever so sorry, we haven't quite got that I dotted and that T crossed. And oh, has it gone smoothly for you today? Yeah? Yeah, definitely. Good. So good job. Good job, good job, and wherever the others are, good, 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 good. We want to do better, we want to do more, so let Steve know, let Alan know, let Louise know how we've performed, what could be better, what you want to see. This is your event. The good news is there's a pop-up bar. I don't drink, so you can have mine. But there's a pop-up bar, a bit of a social, bit of a get-together, some networking. By all means, hang around if you've got the time, have a chat, buttonhole me or anybody else from the team, the people who've spoken today. Safe home, as we say in Scotland. Safe journeys. Go and be outstanding, because that's what you are. Thank you for today, and goodbye.
Thank you, John. Just to say, the tables are going nowhere, the cars are going nowhere, the social's in here. So you don't have to rush off, but the stands are still around if you want to get back, and there will be some more food at 5 o'clock. Those of you that are sensible enough to miss the rush hour, stay on, network, and meet each other and have a good time. Thank you all for coming. Thank you very much.